On a cold January day in Detroit, 13-year-old Neziah Harris vanished without a trace. What followed was a heartbreaking journey that revealed a disturbing pattern of predatory behavior and shattered an entire community. Today we'll take a closer look at the case of Neziah Harris and the man accused of taking her life. January 9th, 2024 started like any other day. Neziah attended school and was expected home that evening. But as night fell, her family calls went unanswered and their worst fears began to take hold. By the next morning, Neziah was reported missing, launching a frantic search by her loved ones and the Detroit community. Days turned into weeks and the case took a dark turn. Surveillance footage revealed Neziah meeting a 42-year-old man named Jarvis. The two were seen traveling to various locations, including a motel, on the day of her disappearance. Investigators discovered clothing near the Rouge River, but Neziah herself was nowhere to be found. Who is Jarvis? A convicted sex offender with a history of targeting minors, and in 2005, Jarvis was convicted of sexually assaulting a child. Despite serving time, his release marked the continuation of a horrifying pattern. Text messages uncovered between Jarvis and Neziah painted a clear picture of grooming and manipulation. Now, the crazy thing about this is Jarvis had a close personal connection to her family, which is not so crazy when you think about it, because most people who are abused by someone they know. And so Jarvis was in a relationship with Neziah's biological aunt, Shannon Harris, and they had 5 children together, apparently. And so the familial relationship provided Jarvis with access to Neziah, which prosecutors allege he exploited to groom and ultimately harm her. As police pieced together the timeline, the evidence grew more damning. Digital records revealed that Jarvis had searched for abortion methods online before Neziah's disappearance. Authorities allege that he sexually assaulted her, resulting in a pregnancy, and then killed her to cover his tracks. These allegations are supported by the explicit messages and evidence of his predatory behavior. The Detroit community was left in shock and anger. Families held vigils demanding answers and justice for Neziah. Jarvis was charged with first-degree murder, criminal sexual conduct, and creating a child sexually abusive material. As of January 9th of 2025, exactly 1 year after Neziah went missing, a judge ruled that there was enough evidence to take this case to trial. On January 9th, 2025, exactly 1 year after 13-year-old Neziah Harris disappeared, her case took a significant step forward. 42-year-old Jarvis faced a preliminary hearing or a preliminary examination where shocking evidence was revealed and the judge declared that there was enough to proceed to trial. So let's discuss the courtroom drama, the evidence presented, and the search for justice in the trial of Jarvis. So let's start with the preliminary examination, which is a pivotal moment in this case. The prosecution laid out their evidence, painting a horrifying picture of what they said happened to Neziah. Prosecutors revealed explicit text messages between Jarvis and Neziah, which detailed a predatory relationship and Jarvis' alleged grooming of the young girl. The messages also showed how he manipulated her trust before the day she disappeared. And so I'm going to show y'all some clips of the prosecutor direct examining the officer who was able to retrieve these text messages.
Including the dates and approximate times.
So the first message is September 24th, 2022 at 22:15 hours UTC. She sends, "Bald head Janiyah, come here."
And that's to a number that's not Mr. Butts.
Correct.
Okay.
Then the next message is on September 27th, 2022. All of these dates are from 2022. So September 27th at 1:37 a.m. UTC. It is sent to Mr. Butts' phone. "We fitnessing, happy birthday." Immediately after that, at the 17-second mark, again to Mr. Butts' phone, it says, "Come on." On that date, September 27th at 1:52 a.m., another message is sent to Butts' phone asking, "You okay?" September 27, 2022, 1:54 a.m. She sent a message, "Where are we doing it at your choice?" Immediately following that text, a message is received to Naziah, to this text now number, from Mr. Butt's phone that says, "You tell me." 9:27, 1:55 a.m. A message is replied to Jarvis, it says, "Basement." 1:56 a.m. A message is sent to Naziah from Mr. Butt's phone that says, "You sure?" At 1:56 a.m., a message is sent to Naziah, from Naziah to Mr. Butt, saying, "or job." At 1:57 a.m., a message is sent to Naziah from Mr. Butt's phone, saying, "Can you suck my dick, please?" The message immediately following that, from Mr. Butt's phone to Naziah, and make sure you erase the messages. Still September 27th, 1:59 UTC, a message is sent to Mr. Butt that says, "Okay, that is what I planned to do." Another message is immediately following that at 2:01 to Mr. Butt. "You turn me on just looking at you," and then there's a bunch of letters, which possibly it's maybe an image that was sent that doesn't capture on the messages. 2:02 a.m. Naziah sends another message to Jarvis, "What time to be in the basement?" 2:03 a.m. he replies and sends her a message that says, "Go change your clothes and take your panties off." Naziah replies to Mr. Butt and says the letter K. At 2:10 a.m., so 7 minutes later, a message is sent from Naziah to Jarvis's phone. "I hear you. What you looking at?" Jarvis replies back immediately to her saying the letter U. At 2:13 a.m. UTC, still on September 27th, Naziah sends Jarvis a message that says, "I know, I'm finna sleep good." There's another message directly after that that has a bunch of symbols, so I'm not sure if it was one of those little emojis. 2:14 a.m., she sends to him, "What about you?" The next message she sends to him immediately after, "Sometimes I be wanting to live with you." 2:16 a.m., she sends to him, "You know what I mean." 2:18 a.m., she sends, "What time I'm ready." 2:23 a.m., she sends to Mr. Butt's phone number, "We not doing it or what?" 2:23 a.m., Naziah sends to Mr. Butt, "I really want you." This is still on the same day, September 27th, 2022. This is now 2:23 a.m. UTC time. Mr. Butt replies to Naziah, "Yes." 2:24 a.m. Naziah sends, "Pull your car down the street and come back. I'll be waiting." 2:25 a.m. Jarvis's phone replies back to her, "Come ride with me and Nye, N-I-Y." 2:25 a.m. she replies, "Did they say I can come?" At 2:30 UTC, she sends him a message that says, "I'm sorry, but love you." 2:30 UTC, he immediately replies back, come on. 2:31, Nazaya replies, I can't, I'm going to get in trouble. The next message is at 2:35. She sends, when you come back, drop Nye off, pull your car down the street, and I'll come in the base, I'll be waiting. Then immediately after that, she sends, basement, please. Jarvis replies, okay. At 2:40, Jarvis replies, you in the basement yet? Immediately after that, Nazaya replies back, yeah. Now we are the next day being, it's now September 28th, 2:28 a.m. UTC. She sends Jarvis a message that says, are we doing it tonight? I'm ready, fresh out the shower. The next message is a reply from him to her. Well, this is September 30th now at 1:25 a.m. UTC. He replies, yo. September 30th, 2:59, she replies, you coming over? She then sends another message directly after that, don't have school. At 3:07, a reply is received to Nazaya from Jarvis saying, yep. She then replies, Kay, we'll be waiting. At 3:17 a.m., he sends another message, she sends a message to Jarvis that says, text me when you get here. At 3:21 a.m., this is still September 30th date, Jarvis replies and sends a message to her saying, outside. Now we have skipped to September 30th, but it is now on here at 23:13 hours UTC. She sends a message to Jarvis saying, hey boo, you coming over? The next message is now October 1st, 2022, 1:51 UTC. She sends a message to Jarvis asking, you coming?
Jarvis' internet searches was also disturbing, including a history of him searching and researching abortion and abortion medication. And so you'll also see that the prosecutor direct examined a cop or a police officer who was able to retrieve the internet history.
December 9th.
Of what year?
Yep, December 9th, 10th, and 11th of 2023.
Okay. And it's fair to say that those are the entirety of all of the searches from those days.
It is not all of them,
Okay.
no.
Those are just select ones from the Google return.
Yes.
All right. Starting with December 9th, tell me which ones that we have in that exhibit.
So the first, you want me to read the ones that are just highlighted, or you want me to start at the top of here? So.
The ones that are highlighted.
Okay.
Just start with the ones that are highlighted.
Yep, so this search was December 9th, 2023 at 3:32 UTC time. So you would actually have to subtract 5 hours, which would make it the night of December 8th. And the site is, what's visited, it's Drink Me and Abort Your Baby, the Herbal Abortion Tea by Maya.
Okay. And what about the next one after that?
There is a site that's visited on December, it says here December 10th, 2023 at 9:32 p.m. UTC, so -5. And the site visited is PlannedParenthood.org. /learn/abortion/the abortion pill.
And
The
one.
next search is immediately after that, so December 10th at 9:32 p.m. UTC. The abortion pill. Get the facts about medication abortion. There is a search that was conducted before that on December 10th, 2023 at 9:31 p.m. UTC. And that site is plannedparenthood.org /blog/can I use herbs to have an abortion at home.
And the next
The
one?
next one is December 10th, 2023 at 9:31 p.m. UTC. Can I use herbs to have an abortion at home? Planned Parenthood.
And the next one?
The next one is December 10th, 2023 at 9:36 p.m. UTC. So again, minus 5 hours. And that site is, it's ansirh.org, research, over-counter medication abortion. Search December 10th, 2023 at 9:36 p.m. Over-the-counter medication abortion, and that's from that same place before, ANSIRH. December 10th, 2023 at 9:32. Planned Parenthood, abortion, the abortion pill. How do I have an abortion using only misoprostol, misoprostol. The next search, December 10th, 2023 at 9:32. Planned Parenthood, learn abortion, the abortion pill. So it's like the same, back and forth to the same site. On December 11th, at 11:43 p.m. UTC, so minus 5 hours. Specifically is searched is, can I drink red antifreeze? Again, that same item is searched again right after the same time, 11:43 on December 11th, 2023.
And so in March of 2024, a woman named Valerie Smith discovered Naziah's school ID near her home in Detroit. And so Valerie testified that she had noticed the ID on her ground for approximately 2.5 weeks before deciding to pick it up. And so after recognizing Naziah's face on the ID, she took it to a nearby gas station and requested that the staff contact the police. And officers responded and accompanied Smith back to the location where she had found the ID. And so the discovery of the school ID was very significant in the investigation as it provided a tangible link to Naziah's last known whereabouts. This evidence, along with other findings, contributed to the case against Jarvis Butts, who is accused of kidnapping and murdering a 13-year-old girl. Prosecutors presented physical evidence, including items of Naziah's clothing found near the Rouge River. The clothing shows signs of a violent struggle. Although Naziah's body has never been recovered, the prosecution argued that the circumstantial evidence strongly supports their case against Jarvis Butts. Perhaps the most damning evidence was the digital trail, you guys. So investigators found that Jarvis had searched for abortion methods just days before Naziah's disappearance. Prosecutors claimed that Naziah became pregnant as a result of sexual assault by Jarvis and that he killed her to cover up the crime. The judge called the evidence overwhelming and described Jarvis as a monster during his preliminary examination. So during this preliminary examination or preliminary hearing, there was over 20 witnesses who testified, including family members, law enforcement officials, and experts. And while the complete list of witnesses and their testimonies is not publicly available, key testimonies were included, such as Naziah's younger cousin. So Naziah's younger cousin testified that she witnessed Jarvis engaging in sexual acts with Neziah and recounted previous instances where Jarvis coerced other cousins. She also mentioned that Jarvis attempted advances towards her, which she resisted. Another witness, which I find very interesting, is Shannon. So Shannon Harris testified as well that she did not suspect anything beyond a normal uncle-niece bond between Jarvis and Neziah. Now remember, you guys, Shannon is the biological aunt to Neziah, and I'm going to hold my comments and thoughts about that towards the end of the video.
Did you leave at any point after 3 o'clock?
No.
Okay. Did you, yes, when Neziah didn't come home, did that cause you to experience or feel any type of way?
It did. When she didn't come home is when my mom went to go pick up the other 2 children from the after school program. They knocked on the door and they had asked a question and said,
Objection. Sounds like hearsay.
One second. You have a response or?
A question isn't hearsay technically.
I think she said.
It's just a question.
Yes.
She was getting ready to say a question. Okay,
What
finish
was
what
the,
you were
what was
saying.
the question? that was asked?
the 2 children had asked me, Mom said,
That's the hearsay.
did
Mom-
Neziah come home?
The hearsay is mom said.
Okay, so were you asked directly whether Neziah came home?
So my mom was still in the car, I was inside the house. They was coming to the house, walking up to the door. When I opened the door, they asked me, Mom said, did Neziah come home? I said no.
Okay. And was Neziah home at all?
No.
Okay. And did you do any sort of looking for Neziah that night?
Yes.
What did you do?
I called my twin sister. I called some of her friends that I know that stays close by. If they had seen Neziah, heard from Neziah and everything. And when I reached out to my sister, she said no. Her friend said no. So after that, I asked my mom, did she want me to call the police? She said no, she will take it up in the morning.
And so also included in the list of witnesses were experts, as I stated, where they testified about the phone records and cell towers mapping. And so this expert provided a timeline of Jarvis' cell phone movements during the critical period surrounding Neziah's disappearance. Another person who testified was Border Patrol Agent Wyatt Barnes, and he testified about searching the River Rouge area in response to Neziah's disappearance. And so these testimonies collectively contributed to the judge's decision to proceed to trial, underscoring the gravity of the charges against Jarvis. So also what's interesting to me is Annette, the grandmother, testified, and she was very emotionless, like didn't have any emotions, and she waited till the next day to report this child missing. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot about how this is.
3:05, no later than that.
And on January 9th, did she walk in at 3:05?
No, she did not.
And were you home when she didn't come home?
I was there for a little while, but I left out to run some errands. But no, when I got to the house, she was not there.
And at that time, did you have a conversation with someone else about her not coming home, Neziah not coming home?
Yeah, when I picked my children up from the after school program, I went in and my daughter said,
Objection to what her daughter said on the hearsay.
English,
I'll
please.
rephrase the question.
Okay, sustain.
Just talking about what you saw and heard, and not asking for what anybody said, but did you talk to Shannon, your daughter?
yes,
about
Shannon said she was not there.
Okay. When you got home that day on the 9th, was Neziah there?
No.
And did you eventually make a police report about her missing?
Yes, I did. Yes, I
And
did.
when did you do that?
That morning, when I got to school, I went up and dropped the kids off to school. I talked with the dean and the principal, and I told them that I was on my way to the police station, and they told me that they would call the police, and the DPS police came there.
And you said DPS, is that Detroit Public Schools?
Yeah.
And did you talk to an officer at that time at the school.
Yes, I did.
And was that at J.E. Clark physically at that location?
Yes.
And you said that
System failed this child. So in the courtroom, the Zaya family listened as the details were laid bare. Their pain was palpable as they heard how Jarvis allegedly manipulated and ultimately betrayed Nazia's trust. Outside the courtroom, her family vowed to keep fighting for justice, calling for harsher penalties for repeat offenders like Jarvis. The defense, meanwhile, pushed back, arguing that there is no direct evidence linking Jarvis to Nazia's death since her body has not been found. However, the weight of the circumstantial evidence was enough for the judge to bind Jarvis over for the trial on charges of first-degree murder, second-degree criminal sexual conduct, and the creation of child sexually abusive material. The community and social media response to this trial has been loud and clear. We want justice for Naziah. Protests have called for harsher penalties for repeat offenders and better protection for vulnerable children. Vigils continue to be held in her honor as the community refuses to let her memory fade. As the trial approaches, all eyes are going to be on Detroit's courtroom. Prosecutors are expected to call multiple witnesses, including forensic experts, digital investigators, and even other victims who have come forward with allegations against Jarvis. The trial will likely shine a spotlight on the systematic failure that allowed a repeat offender to harm another child. Naziah's family and the community remain steadfast in their pursuit of justice. This trial is not just about holding Jarvis Butts accountable. It's also about sending a message that crimes against children will not go unanswered. As the legal process unfolds, I will continue to follow this case and share updates with you guys. If you or someone you know is a victim of abuse, please contact the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888 or your local authorities. The tragic case of Naziah Harris underscores how systematic failures disproportionately harm young Black girls when it comes to protecting them from child predators. And so, me being a former child attorney, I'm going to list out some of the ways that these failures manifest, because y'all, I've seen it from Black, white, Hispanic, all across the board. But I'm going to stick to just Black girls and just take this information as you will. But Black girls are often perceived as fast, aka being more mature or less innocent than their peers, as a stereotype known as adultification bias. And so this bias can lead authorities, educators, and even family members to dismiss their vulnerabilities or fail to take their reports of abuse seriously. And so families that are in the Black community are less likely to report abuse due to fears of judgment, shame, or mistrust of the legal system. And I've seen this time and time in my place as an attorney or as an attorney for children when I used to do that. And so the child welfare system, or DCF, as CPS, whatever you want to call it, is often overwhelmed and underfunded, which leads to delays or failures to act on red flags. In cases like Naziah, authorities may have missed signs of grooming or abuse despite clear evidence. And so Black families are more likely to face punitive actions such as family separation rather than supportive measures to address the underlying issues like poverty or trauma. And so predators oftentimes exploit familiar trust, you guys. And so in Naziah's case, predators often have close ties to the victim's families, making it harder for children to speak out and for families to recognize the danger. And so grooming, which is a manipulative tactic used by predators, often goes unnoticed or is misinterpreted, especially when it happens within trusted relationships. And so oftentimes our Black children face barriers to accessing counseling or trauma-informed care, which could help identify abuse and support survivors. And so many families lack access to education on how to recognize these signs of grooming or abuse, leaving children more vulnerable. And like I said, this is not even just for Black children, but I've seen it in several races, right? And so a lot of times within the schools, these are critical lines of defense, but oftentimes they can fail to identify or report signs of abuse, especially in underserved communities with undertrained staff. And so reports from Black girls are less likely to be prioritized or investigated thoroughly, and perpetrators may face lenient consequences, perpetuating cycles of abuse. And y'all, it's bad. A lot of my cases that were like this, it was unfortunately with majority with young Black girls ranging from the ages of 6 to 17. So a lot of times, y'all, Black girls are often hypersexualized in media as well, which can desensitize society to their victimization. And so cases involving Black girls tend to receive less media attention and public advocacy compared to those involving white victims, leading to fewer resources and slower justice. So in efforts to better protect young Black girls from child predators, systematic changes are necessary. So first, let's invest in education. Schools and communities need to be trained in identifying and reporting grooming and abuse. And I know teachers are mandatory reporters, but maybe if your school isn't doing this, have DCFS or someone or a police officer come in twice a school year to do these trainings, right, to identify these sort of groomings. The next thing is advocacy campaigns should address adultification bias and promote the idea that all children deserve protection. And so the next thing is to expand access to mental health care and legal support for Black families. Next, strengthen legal penalties and ensure law enforcement take all reports seriously. And we should also empower survivors to share their stories and influence policy changes. Y'all, the case of Naziah Harris serves as a heartbreaking reminder that these systematic failures have real devastating consequences. Addressing these issues requires sustained commitment from individuals, communities, and institutions alike. And I just want to say, I believe that it appears that some of the family should have known something was going on. I know you can't believe everything you hear on social media, but as I look at comments on social media, I'm hearing her mom is not in her life because her grandmother did adopt her. I can only assume it was an agency adoption, meaning she was adopted through DCFS because maybe, mom, parental rights were terminated. The father, I heard the father was deceased. I don't know if that's to be true. But there are things such as family curses. And what I'm hearing on social media, which I did not verify, did not fact check, but when I saw the grandmother testifying, she looked rather young. And she didn't seem, and it's been a year, but this is your grandchild. This is your baby, right? She lacked emotion to me. And so did the aunt when they both testified. And I heard on social media is that Naziah's mother became pregnant with her when she was preteen teenager, 12 to 15, around that age, to an older man. That's what I don't know if that's true. People talk. But I can believe that to be true. Based off of how Miss Annette looks, she looks rather young. And I read that the grandmother became pregnant at 11 or at a very young age. Again, don't know if that's true. But if this is all true, it seems to be a pattern. Grandma became pregnant at 11. Mom became pregnant, 12, 13, 14, 15, however old. And then, Naziah is groomed and becomes pregnant by an older man. This seems like this family has normalized this sort of behavior. And then also looking at Shannon, right? A woman who seemed to be, she had 5 kids by the man, right? With the understanding that apparently he was a registered sex offender. He had sexually violated an ex-girlfriend's 4-year-old at one point. He had pending criminal charges according to testimony of an ex-fiance. And the two women looked alike. And I don't take that as you will, but it just appears that he targeted certain women. certain women that society deems, I know my voice sounded crazy because I'm trying to be careful with my words, but basically a society where he targeted certain women where society deems them as less desirable. Whereas from the history of colorism, texturism, and all of the isms in the Black community, you know, these women would probably, you know, oh my God, this guy is interested in me, and lose their marbles, or they choose to take a blind eye when it comes to certain things just to say they got a man or have this man on their hip, or by their side rather. And so I do believe, in my heart of hearts, I do believe they knew what was going on. I don't believe they cared. I don't think they cared. And I could be wrong, and I want to be wrong. But just based on how they testified, their demeanor, waiting 24 hours, grandma failed them, the auntie failed them, whoever else was around failed them. It was a known fact that this man was a sexual predator on the register, should have been on the registered sex offender list. I don't know. I'm assuming he was, right? And you invite this man into your home. You have kids by him. A sexual deviant across the board. And I am disgusted. I am disgusted that this young girl was not protected. This young girl was failed. Who knows where her mother is? Her mom is probably out dealing with her own trauma that she endured through the grandmother. To me, it looked like the grandma didn't care. One less mouth she has to feed. I don't know, you know? But I say all this to say, justice for Neziah. Jarvis, you are disgusting. I believe it to be true. I believe he did it. I believe the evidence is overwhelming. Granted, there is no body, but the fact that there are text messages of you manipulating this young girl, your internet history, you being seen with her the day that she disappeared, and his sister testified to also seeing Neziah that same day as well, but not knowing who she was, but later being able to identify her. Sir, I hope you rot in hell. I hope you rot in hell. And don't lock him up and throw away the key. That's it. That's all. I will keep you guys updated. That was just a preliminary examination. You know, I'm going to just explain a little bit. And so the preliminary examination is often a tool used by defense attorneys to determine what evidence does the prosecutors have, you know, to charge their client, right? They want to see the evidence before they go to trial. Do they have probable cause for these charges? And the judge found that there was probable cause, you know? And so it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. We'll just have to see, because he's technically innocent until proven otherwise. But I mean, it's from what I've seen, the testimonies, the evidence, girl, it's clear as day he did it. He did it. You don't need a trial. But he is, you know, offered, you know, as an American citizen, he has to have his day in trial, his day in court. So we'll just see how it goes, right? But anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Justice for Neziah Harris. May her soul rest in peace. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.
And the one thing I had highlighted in pink is the quote, "In this case, there was no physical evidence such as bloodstains or a weapon leading defendant to Joyce's death. In this case, we don't have the same facts or circumstances." I do agree this is a circumstantial case, and circumstantial evidence is sufficient for a bind over and even conviction. Today is January 9th, 2025, exactly 1 year, from the day Neziah Harris disappeared. Before I get into the charges, and the main charge of premeditated first-degree murder, I have to speak on Neziah Harris and the community who failed her. And I am only presented with certain evidence. I don't know the whole story. The attorneys know more than me. The family knows more than me. But from what I have heard over the last 4 days and 5 days total, is that several people failed her. I don't know where her mother is. I don't know anything other than that she was forced to live in a home where she was not protected or given the adequate attention and love. I don't know what her father is. I don't have any mention of him in her life, no presence. To Cordell, aka King, and all the men who saw Jarvis Butts hanging out and always around these young girls, including Isaiah, and his 9-year-old daughter going up to the shop to clean up his shop. The school counselor who never showed up, or the person who was supposed to show up if that counselor was absent, after Isaiah was on the floor on the day she went missing, saying that she needed to speak to someone and speak to a counselor. There's no mention of CPS, but I wonder what their involvement was over the years, because this was not just a one-year thing. There are text messages at least from 2022. To her adoptive grandmother, Annette Harris, whose testimony, in my opinion, was very questionable. I understand why the people put her on the stand to establish Isaiah's residence and the houses on Bedford and the regular routine, to establish also that Isaiah was not a runaway child, that she was not a bad kid. I do believe she adopted Isaiah. I do believe that she had 6 kids in the house. I believe that Isaiah had on a dark hoodie the day she went missing, and that she had on red and black Nikes that day. What is hard to believe is that the defendant never came into the house as she testified. And there was also a minor that testified that he did as well. Text messages that show between him and Isaiah that he did. In the basement, saying he was going to the shower, stealing her panties. He was always lurking around that house and asking for Janiyah and Zaniyah, from what I know. I even thought about the breakfast routine and saying that all the kids like eating breakfast at school. Did they have a choice? I don't know. But to always send those girls up there to clean up the shop raises questions. And how were there 2 women in that house who had birthed the children themselves who did not notice that Isaiah was pregnant, and I believe she was, and not having her period anymore? But then after hearing text messages today, begging Jarvis for pads as if she didn't have anyone else to give them for her. And what stood out the most was when Annette Harris stood on the stand, and she learned around 6 p.m. that Isaiah did not come home from school, and said she looked around for her and decided to wait until the next morning to call the police. Without a tear, without emotion, or any expression of being devastated. And to her Aunt Shannon, who also showed no emotion, expression of being devastated from Isaiah going missing. She stated that she had friends help look for Isaiah, but was directed to just wait until the morning to call the police. A grown woman who likely suspected something strange going on didn't feel the need to call the police either. They were both able to go to sleep at night without hearing from Isaiah or having any indication that she was coming home that night. And of course, the defendant, who I will get to in a minute. I don't know who else failed Isaiah, but the community did. As far as the people establishing probable cause, I will focus on count 1, as it's been stated that there is no contention with counts 2 and 3. In count 3, I will amend based off of the motion and the testimony I heard that Isaiah was 12 and not 13 at the time that Jarvis Butts had sexual intercourse with her. The prosecution is correct. You do not have to have a body to establish first-degree premeditated murder. It would have been a much shorter exam had her body been found, but this is where we are. In the last 365 days, no text messages. We all heard today and yesterday that she was very active and frequently texted. No social media for a year. We heard through testimony that she was also active on social media. No phone calls, which she was also able to do according to testimony. No physical sighting of her by anyone. She never came back to school. No one has seen her. Medical records dated from July 2014 to October 2023 indicated that she had no life-threatening medical issues that would lead to a natural cause of death. The black hoodie found in the area of 7 Mile and Berg with her DNA and blood on it. The holes in the hoodie consistent with some sort of struggle, violence, or weapon being used. And we know that there were no holes in that hoodie when she wore it to school. We saw a picture of her in a black hoodie on her last day that everyone saw her. I do believe her grandma testified truthfully about the sweatshirt that she had on and that was practically new. And the border agent who said that no evidence of animals would have destroyed the clothing or the shoes to possibly lead to animals tearing up that hoodie. The clear glasses found in the blue Nissan the day after she went missing. The behavior of the defendant when he snatched those glasses. They looked exactly like the glasses she had on in her last picture, according to the witness. The shoes that her brother described as the same shoes that were found also in the area of 7 Mile and Berg near the hoodie. While this is still probable cause, the evidence all points to Jarvis Butts. His locations, him being seen with her last, the abortion searches, the abrupt silence between the two of them in text messages, and the constant lies he told throughout the entire investigation. And they were proven to be lies with text messages and other testimony. We may never know what happened, but from what I heard today and over the last 4 or 5 days, it appears he intended to perform what he thought was a do-it-yourself abortion on Isaiah and went south, and instead of seeking medical attention for her, he intentionally killed her and tried his best to cover it up. As much as I want her to be alive today, there is at least probable cause to show and believe that she's dead and that she was murdered by Jarvis Butts. Mr. Butts, stand up. You've been sitting over there for 4 days with your head down, sitting between and behind your attorneys with your mask on and taking vigorous notes. I want you to pay attention and listen to everything I have to say. I have been trying to figure out for the last 5 days, you. At one point I thought you were cognitively impaired in the beginning of this exam. And then maybe you had the brain of a 10-year-old and that's why you were doing such things. But as I heard more and more testimony, you're just the true definition of a pedophile. Watching you laugh and brag about all the women you have with different women and the children and the girlfriends, and making babies to groom them and having them in your presence, cleaning up, quote, cleaning up your shop, and the little girls around you, has landed you here today. You groomed Isaiah. You played mind games with her. We all heard that. You controlled her emotionally. She was exposed to so much at such a young age. The text messages between you two were disgusting to hear. And to think that she had you saved in her phone as bae for life. Isaiah deserves so much more. And while I mentioned other people that failed her, Jarvis Butts, you are the monster in this whole picture. She did deserve love from her parents and everyone who was in her life. She was ignored, she was neglected, and you took complete advantage of that. She wanted someone to love her, and she will never know what that feels like. Your children deserve more. As much as defense counsel has raised issues on count 1, all that has done is raise the question of fact for the trier of fact, which means that this will be for a jury or a judge to hear in Third Circuit. I pray for the healing of all the victims and the young girls and possibly boys who have come into contact with you. As a community, we should look at this case as a prime example of how much work we have to do when it comes to protecting our children and especially our black girls. I pray for closure and healing for all those who have been traumatized by you. And for you, Jarvis Butts, I wish you a speedy trial and that justice be delivered. Your bind over date is